people of grace, but there's consequences to our actions. But remember that God was trying to get the nation to live up to His holy standards and represent Him before the nation. And if Israel was going to act like the Moabites and look like the Midianites, so that there was no difference between them and the world, then God couldn't call them His people. You've been born again. You've given your heart to the Lord. But yet, after you have given your heart to the Lord, you are no different than everybody else around you. You're no different than co-workers. You're no different than family members. You're no different than you used to be. But yet, something happened. Maybe you went up front to church in revival service. Maybe you knelt down. Maybe you prayed. Maybe somebody put pressure onto you to accept Christ as your personal Savior or whatever. But then when you got up and you walked out of the church, you really haven't changed. You're still sort of the same person. Well, I think that's what God was so angry with about these people, was that they were calling themselves children of God, but yet they were drifting over to the camp and hanging out with the prostitutes and looking like the guys over there and acting like the guys over there and having sex over there and eating of the food and partaking of the temple services and doing all of that stuff. And then they were coming back into Israel and, just sort of getting back in and mingling with their wife and children and acting like nothing had happened. And I fear that what has happened in the modern church, and this is not very popular for me to say this, but I fear what has happened sometimes in the modern churches is we can go out of the doors. Listen to me. We can go out of the doors on Sunday morning and be no different than the world, and then come back in the doors the following Sunday and be so spiritual, and yet in the in-between time, our co-workers and our families see no difference between us and anybody else around them. There needs to be a difference. It may be today that we need to re-examine our lives and sort of look at the way we're living. Have we become such a part of the world that it's hard for anybody to distinguish us from everybody else? Now, if you don't want to say that you're a Christian, that's okay. But the older I get, the more it bothers me when people say that they're Christians, but yet get out in the world and talk like the world and do things that the world is doing. There needs to be a separation. But what I'm talking about is a frame of mind that if we're going to be different, let's be different. Let's make up our minds that we're going to be different. The nation of Israel was supposed to be different from the Moabites and the Midianites. God did that for a purpose. He wanted them to serve Him so that the Moabites and the Midianites would not be shunned and wouldn't be welcomed, but so they would be welcomed. So that they could come. God never turned away anybody that ever wanted to join himself to Israel. Did y'all know that? God never said, you can't come over here and become like us. God wanted the nation of Israel to be so separate, to be so distinct, that other people would look around at some of the practices that were going on around them and say, man, I can't believe we're sacrificing our babies over. I can't believe we're living like this. This is not the right way to live. Look at the way Israel's living. I'm going to take my family and we're going to migrate over there and we're going to adopt their methods and the way that they worship God. We're going to start serving their God. That's the reason God had it that way.